You are listening to The Curse That Stole Fortune on Ping Pong Audio. The year was 1977, the first year the university entrance exams were reinstated. On that fateful day, before the eyes of everyone, I tore my exam paper into pieces and declared my intention to herd cattle in the mountains. The village chief's daughter, hailed as a prodigy and perched on a pedestal of unassailable brilliance, heard the news and was instantly consumed by a furious despair. In my previous life, we had both sat for that very same examination. Yet I was branded a cheat, my reputation irrevocably shattered, simply because our papers were identical and she had been the first to submit hers. Even my own fiancé, Vu Dai Hai, rose to condemn me, accusing me of plagiarism. I cried out my innocence, but no one listened. The consequence was a 3-year ban from exams and the loss of my right to return to the city. I was forced to remain in the farm, enduring the relentless harassment of the village chief day and night. Ultimately, I was falsely accused of being a loose woman, left to starve and freeze to death in a cattle pen. My parents, discovering my fate, sought justice, only to be branded as capitalists, stripped of all their assets, and driven to their deaths by unbearable anguish. Until my dying breath, I could not comprehend it. How could the exam results, the culmination of my ceaseless, agonizing study, be an exact replica of hers? Then my eyes snapped open once more. I was back. Back to the day before the university entrance exam. Outside the window, the north wind howled a frigid lament. Xiaomin opened the door quickly. "I've brought you the practice test," Vu Dai Hai's voice. My fiancé's voice boomed from outside. As I checked my body, confirming there was no pain, no lingering trace of my horrific end. The shocking truth dawned on me: I had truly been reborn. The calendar on the wall marked the exact day before the exam, the very day in my past life, when Dai Hai had braved the biting wind to bring me a mock test. My heart ached at the sight of his chapped, wind-burned face. It was this very face, in my previous existence, that had contorted in fury, joining strangers to maliciously accuse me of cheating. Winter of 1977. I waited impatiently at home for the exam results, only for a mob to smash through my door, dragging me to the academic office. My gaze fell upon 2 university exam papers, identical down to every stroke, and a chilling silence descended upon me. Parents gathered outside the exam hall, unanimously sided with Kat Than Thon, the chief's daughter. They swore they had seen her leave first a damning testament to my supposed plagiarism. I frantically tried to prove my innocence. At home, our Luke family residence, piles of my scratch paper, filled with problems and solutions from my arduous study, were torn to shreds before my eyes. Everyone in the farm knew the chief's daughter was a child prodigy, brilliant from infancy. Who would believe a mere ordinary student like me trying to deceive them with a few scraps of paper? Some even sneered, claiming I, the daughter of an intellectual, resented the farm's true genius and had resorted to cheating to enter university. Even Vu Dai Hai, my fiancé, pointed an accusatory finger at me. My pleas for justice were drowned out by the cries of the mob. Not only was I pelted with paper, but I was also beaten mercilessly. I was banned from the exam for 3 years, immediately escorted back to the farm, my right to return to the city revoked. From that moment on, Chief Cat became increasingly brazen, using the pretense of revenge to harass me openly, even physically molesting me in public. When I resisted, he spread malicious rumors, defaming my honor, until the villagers ganged up, throwing me into the cattle pen. They beat me so brutally that blood filled my mouth. The chief's wife's curses echoed in my ears. "You whore, how dare you tempt my cat die?" My parents were implicated, unable to prove my innocence. They were branded as capitalists, their property confiscated, and they died of pure indignation. Even now, thinking back, my body still throbbed with the phantom pain. The university exam, which I had yearned for so many years, had become the death knell for my entire family. This time reborn, I vowed to unearth the truth, to force every single one of my accusers to restore my family's honor. Dai Hai's booming voice snapped me back to the present. "Xiaomin, what are you thinking? Hurry and finish this test. When you're done, we can go to Teacher Chu's house. Kat Than Thun is there too. We can listen to the predicted questions Teacher Chu gave her." I looked at Dai Hai's sincere, innocent face, finding it hard to believe he was the same man who had stood with my accusers in the previous life. But why had he changed so much? And why were there 2 identical exam papers? Everyone in the farm called Kat Than Than a prodigy, yet her house contained not a single book. Still, she consistently scored high on every exam. People praised her, but I felt no admiration. I knew the answers to every problem she could solve. I had merely kept my true abilities hidden. When I was first sent to the countryside, my mother wept and told me, "You must study, but don't study too well. Being too smart can bring disaster." That's why when the proctor placed two identical papers before everyone, only my parents believed that every stroke on my paper was the result of years of tireless study. Even before being sent to the countryside, I had devoured every book my grandfather left behind. Throughout these years, I had never stopped learning. With my knowledge, the first university exam would be as easy as turning my hand. Hearing that Kat Tan Tan was at Teacher Chu's house, I immediately lost interest in my mock test. I hastily packed my things and rushed there. As I entered, I heard Kat Tan Tan exclaim, I know, don't rush me." She was chewing on her pen, her mock test still blank. Her eyes froze as she saw me, then immediately melted into a smile. A few other students were in the room, and Chief Cat himself sat beside his daughter. The sight of him made me involuntarily tremble, and I quickly moved to sit close to Dai Hai. As I opened my paper and began to write, Cat Than Than suddenly started scribbling furiously. Once I had solved all the problems, Dai Hai immediately snatched my scratch paper engrossed in it. He even took it to compare with others. Cat Than Than stood with folded arms, waiting for Teacher Chu to grade her paper. "Teacher Chu, I told you I'd remember," she chirped. I leaned over to look at her solution. Indeed, it was exactly what I had written on my scratch paper, and she had only started writing after I entered the room. Could she have seen my answers? I moved closer to examine it, but Cat Than Than abruptly pushed me away. "Gao Tu man, why are you so eager to look at my paper? Couldn't do it yourself, so you plan to copy?" Dai Hai hearing this looked displeased. "Cat Than Than, that's harsh. This isn't an exam room. What's wrong with looking at your paper?" Chief Cat let out a cold laugh. "Who knows, perhaps someone would dare to copy in an exam room." I flinched. The memory of being falsely accused rushed back, sending a chill down my spine. Why were Cat Than Than and her father saying such things? Had they already guessed that I would write something identical to her Dai Hai? Dared not argue with Chief Cat. He could only turn to me, comforting me, telling me not to argue with them. I looked at Dai Hai's protective demeanor, a fresh wave of suspicion rising in my heart. I had always hidden my true abilities, feigning mediocrity as a weak student. Dai Hai was the only one besides my parents who knew the truth. Because of this, he had always helped me, never allowing anyone to look down on me. Yet after the university exam in my previous life, he had been the one most convinced that I had copied from Cat Than Than. I sat right behind them and saw with my own eyes how Gao Tu Man kept peeking at Cat Than Than's paper. Besides, Gao Tu Man's performance has always been ordinary. How could she write such an excellent essay? As the sole witness in the exam room, his every word had pushed me into the abyss. Looking at his concerned expression now, I could not fathom why he had betrayed me. Cat Than Than, whether by accident or design, kept bumping into Dai Hai. On the surface, it seemed like antagonism, but there were countless intimate touches. Could Dai Hai have shown her my paper? But in a strict exam room, with me sitting right behind Cat Than Than, how could she have managed to write something identical to mine? My mind reeled, lost in a tangled web of unanswered questions. Cat Than Than's reputation as a prodigy had only emerged after my mother and I were sent to this farm. Before we arrived, no one in the village had ever heard of her. She had only studied for a few days, yet she could recite Tang poems and song verses. She was continuously promoted through grades until the announcement of the university exam reinstatement, when her eagerness to prove herself intensified. Thinking of this, I stared intently at Cat Than Than. She noticed my gaze and glanced back, her eyes full of provocation. "This math problem is boring. Why don't Teacher Chu give us an essay topic to practice?" Teacher Chu immediately agreed, then solicitously told me, "Your foundation isn't as strong as Cat Than Than's. You can think about your writing direction first. It's okay if you can't write anything." I smiled, took the paper, and looked at the prompt. It was simple. In less than 3 minutes, I had the entire essay structure in my head and began to write. I was only halfway through when Cat Than Than finished hers. Everyone crowded around, demanding to see her paper. Cat Than Than pouted, her voice not loud, but perfectly audible to all. "Actually, this essay shouldn't be written down. What if someone takes my paper as a reference? Then I'll have no way to plead my case." Chief Cat immediately roared, "Who dares to accuse my daughter? My daughter, Thing Thun, is the #1 prodigy of this farm. If she can't write something, then no one else can. If anyone writes something similar, they must have copied from her." His voice was full of menace, his cold eyes sweeping directly towards me. Images of him harassing me in my past life flooded back, vivid and sickening. Just seeing him made me nauseous, unable to breathe. The other students quickly chimed in, assuring him that no one would dare to copy. Who would dare to plagiarize the farm chief's daughter's work? It would be suicide. After a moment of chatter, everyone urged Teacher Chu to grade Kat Than Than's essay. The result? Teacher Chu barely glanced at the first few lines before exclaiming loudly, "Excellent. Absolutely excellent. This is the first year the university exam is being held, and everyone's foundation is still weak. Yet you've written such a mature essay. This paper would be considered top tier even at a university." I looked down at my unfinished essay on the scratch paper filled with doubt. Was Kat Than Than truly a prodigy who needed no books, no teachers, enlightened by herself? I shot up, ignoring the stares, and snatched the essay from Teacher Chu's hand. My eyes widened instantly. Thousands of words, written with a bold, free hand, from the initial idea to the detailed arguments. I read every word, every punctuation mark, leaving nothing out. And then, it was identical to the essay I had already formed in my mind. Not a single word was different. I clenched the scratch paper in my hand, but I hadn't even finished writing yet. How could she have known the rest? The part I hadn't even had time to write? Could she see the future? As I pondered, unable to understand what had gone wrong, my hand suddenly stung. "Xiaomin, what are you writing?" "Let me see." Daihai snatched the scratch paper from my hand. My heart lurched. "Give it back." I lunged, tearing the paper from his grasp and instantly shredding it into tiny pieces. In an instant, the entire room of students and teachers froze in stunned silence. Daihai, too, was startled by my unusual action, speechless. Kat Than Than raised an eyebrow. Such an extreme reaction. Did she write something she didn't want others to see? Or did she copy someone else's work? All eyes in the room turned to me. I clutched the paper fragments so tightly my fingernails pierced the paper, digging into my palm. Daihai tried to say something, but I didn't hear him. I simply clutched my satchel and fled from Teacher Chu's house. I dared not imagine what would happen if they saw my essay was identical to Kat Than Than's. I was just moments away from being branded a plagiarist again, just like in my previous life. As I walked, a cold dread snaked up my spine, a chilling fear that enveloped every step in the biting, skin-cutting winter air. I wore only a thin sweater, walking against the freezing wind, yet cold sweat drenched my back. Tomorrow was the university exam. If I truly shared a psychic connection with Kat Than Than, wouldn't our exam papers be identical then too? The thought alone was horrifying, truly malevolent. When I arrived home, my mother was by the stove, carefully adding wood. Once a pampered young lady who had never touched a drop of spring water, her hands were now calloused. Since the news of the university exam reinstatement, my mother had been the happiest person in our household. With tears in her eyes, she had hugged me, saying, "Min, I've finally waited for this day. You must take the exam." She believed the exam meant she saw light. I looked into my mother's hopeful eyes, my heart a burning ember of unease. Taking the exam might lead to the same unjust death as in my previous life. Not taking it, however, would betray my mother's fervent hopes. I tried to remain calm, not letting her detect anything amiss. "What's wrong, dear? Are you too stressed?" My mother, after all, saw right through me. I sighed softly. "It's nothing. This is just the first year the exam has been reinstated. There will be many more opportunities. If I don't pass this time, I can try again next time. My daughter has studied so hard for so many years, she will definitely pass." The next morning, my mother woke early to prepare breakfast. She brought out the rare piece of smoked meat our family had treasured, too precious to eat, and placed it on the table. Seeing this, my heart ached with unspoken sorrow, but I couldn't risk it. The university exam was important, but the lives of my entire family were more important. I carefully put my exam permit in my bag and left the house. I would still take the exam, but not in the same way as before. A bold idea suddenly sparked in my mind. This might not be the best choice, but at this moment, I had no other path. Kat Than Than was already in her seat. Our exam numbers were consecutive. I lingered outside the exam room, hesitating until the final bell rang. Only then did I rush to my seat. She saw me and subtly exhaled a sigh of relief, a minute movement. But I caught it. Now thinking back, it seemed she had always been intensely aware of me. That day when I brought the mock test to Teacher Chu's house, she had shown the exact same expression. If she knew all my thoughts, then at this very moment, she must be the one trembling with apprehension. The bell rang, and the exam papers were distributed. I carefully read the first few questions. Kat Than Than began to write. I still hadn't moved my pen yet. She was writing fluidly. I closed my eyes, emptying my mind, trying to forget everything related to the exam. The sound of writing from the seat in front of me suddenly fell silent, as if Kat Than Thun's pen could only operate if it relied on my thoughts. If I thought she could write, if I stopped, she immediately stalled. Then, shred. In the quiet exam room, a piercing sound of tearing paper echoed as if ripping through fate itself. Student, what are you doing? Who allowed you to tear your exam paper? The proctor roared. I smiled, looking at the teacher. I apologize, teacher. This exam is truly too difficult. I can't do it. I'm quitting the exam. In front of me, Kat Than Thun's shoulders trembled. She spun around, her eyes shooting cold, dagger-like glares, as if she wished to pierce me 100 times over. I shrugged innocently. The proctor sighed. What is this? Well, leave the exam room quickly. Don't disturb others. I grabbed my bag and darted out. Outside the exam room, waiting parents gaped in astonishment. Entered the exam room and came out so fast. This child is brilliant, must be getting into Tsinghua or Peking University. I laughed loudly, filled with a proud defiance. My eyes scanned the crowd and met the intensely noticeable face of Chief Cat. His eyebrows were knitted tightly, his eyes almost glued together, his eyelids pressed down so low I couldn't discern his pupils. But there was no doubt he was staring at me, lips pressed into a thin line, cheeks puffed, teeth grinding. I waved to the crowd by the gate. They told me to hurry home to eat and prepare for the next subject. I slung my bag over my shoulder and shouted, no more preparing. I'm not taking the other subjects. I'm going home to herd cattle. The crowd froze, then erupted in a cacophony of chatter. Oh, so this child is just a poor student. Submitting early makes sense then. Hearing this, everyone around couldn't help but burst into laughter. What did we think? Turns out the first one out is just like this, ha ha ha. I laughed along with them. That's right. The first one out is just like this. Only this time, Chief Cat was no longer laughing. You brat, who told you not to take the exam? He rolled up his sleeves, charged through the crowd, covering 3 steps in 2 bounds, and stood directly in front of me, raising his hand to slap me across the face. I laughed mockingly, as if deliberately provoking him. He staggered, raising his fist to hit me again, but this time he hesitated. The police outside the exam room weren't idle. All I had to do was scream, and they would immediately surround Chief Cat. What's wrong? Why are you hitting someone? I wiped the blood from my lip with the back of my hand, deliberately dragging it from my left cheek to my right, feigning extreme injustice. Uncle, please protect me. This man hit a student outside the exam room. My head hurt so much. Chief Cat's eyes bulged, his veins throbbing on his forehead. He trembled, roaring, You go back to the exam room immediately. Do you hear me? When the police led Chief Cat away, he was still screaming, demanding I return to the exam. Thank goodness my mother arrived just in time, or people would have thought he was my father, so concerned about my exam. My mother gently stroked my cheek, her eyes filled with sorrow. That bastard, how could he hit you so hard? I smiled and said it was nothing, but this year's university exam was probably a lost cause. My mother held me, then hugged me tightly, asking no more questions. She simply embraced me and said, if it's a lost cause, then so be it. Everything you've learned is in your head. As long as you want to take it, as long as there's an opportunity, you can take the university exam anytime. I returned home, stuffed 2 corn cakes into my bag, and headed up the mountain to herd cattle. But just as I sat down on a small patch of ground on the hillside, Kat Than Thun appeared behind me, towering over me. Her eyes wide with fury, she grabbed my arm, demanding I return to take the exam. I was no soft-handed, weak-legged city girl. Years on the farm had hardened me. When she couldn't drag me, she resorted to wild punches and kicks. I swung my arm, pushing her straight to the side. Daihai rushed over, breathless. Xiaomin, go easy on her. After all, she's the chief's daughter. Harming her means big trouble. Kat Than Thun brushed the dirt off her bottom as she stood up, her voice hoarse as if she had swallowed a mouthful of vinegar. I order you to go back to the exam room. If you don't dare to go, your whole family can forget about ever returning to the city. I let out a cold, derisive laugh. So what if we can't go back to the city? It's better than rotting to death in this place. Kat Than Thun turned and subtly glanced at Daihai. You haven't forgotten what you promised me, have you? If your girlfriend doesn't know her place, you won't have it easy either. Daihai quickly nodded, bowing subserviently, whispering a few words to Kat Than Thun behind my back. His posture so abject he dared not look up. I waited for him to explain, but he said nothing, merely pulling my arm, intending to drag me down the mountain. Gao Tu man, I know you're smart, You just didn't dare to let people know before. You finished the test, but didn't dare to show the teacher. You wrote the essay, but secretly hid it, not letting anyone read it. But it's different now. The university exam has been reinstated. If you have talent, you should show it. Why hide it now? Vu Dai Hai, a man of limited ability, had once been caring and kind. When my father was transferred to the frontier, and my mother and I were moved from the commune to the farm, it was thanks to his family's quiet assistance that we weren't scorned by others. But now I was no longer sure. I didn't know whose side he was truly on. I'm not taking the exam. Even if I do, I won't take it with Kat Than Thang. I threw his hand off, plopping down beneath a large tree on the edge of the village, stubbornly refusing to move like a defiant child. Vu Dai Hai suddenly seemed like a different person. No longer gentle, no longer caring. He grabbed my hair, trying to pull me up from the ground. I had never seen him so violent. You will take this exam with Kat Than Thang, he raged. I was completely unable to resist. He pulled and dragged me for dozens of meters, my cotton coat and pants tearing. I screamed wildly. Finally, a few nearby villagers ran out, some with hoes, some with sickles, managing to deter Vu Dai Hai. Among those who helped me was old woman Zhang, the village's notorious eccentric. She stared at me, her eyes fixated, mumbling incessantly about ghosts, spirits, and great lords possessing bodies. As I tried to stand and leave, she clutched me tightly. The more I struggled, the tighter she held. My child, listen to me. You have an evil presence on you. If you don't get rid of it, it will be disastrous. Old woman Zhang's shriek brought my struggles to a complete halt. While superstition and feudal beliefs shouldn't be trusted, since my mother and I were moved to the farm, I had encountered and heard countless strange things. Many events were completely inexplicable, and we dared not delve deeper. Old woman Zhang gripped my shoulders, her face serious. Child, wasn't there a time soon after you arrived when you suffered from intense headaches, and someone kept chanting in your head without stopping? I nodded faintly. But that was a long time ago, when my mother and I had just moved to the farm. As I spoke, I felt something strange, slowly becoming clear. Back then, after moving from Lanjiang commune to the farm, our family was assigned a mud house at the head of the village, arranged personally by Chief Cat. It was during that time that I frequently suffered from severe headaches, screaming to my mother that I was dying. I couldn't sleep at night, always feeling someone whispering in my ear. My mother worried herself sick, her hair turning gray, staying awake with me every night. But strangely, in the middle of the night, she would fall into a deep sleep, unable to be woken, no matter how much I called. Frightened, I sought out Vu Dai Hai, asking his parents for help. Uncle Vu and Auntie agreed immediately, saying they would find a way. Unexpectedly, 3 days later, my headaches truly ceased, and the whispers vanished from my ears. Because of this, my mother seemed bewitched, immediately arranging an engagement between me and Vu Dai Hai. At the time, all I understood was studying nothing of life. I simply thought of him as another friend to play with, and that future matters could be decided later. Old woman Zhang shook my shoulders, pulling me back to reality. That headache had a reason. I no longer dared to take it lightly, and looked at old woman Zhang seriously, seeing that I truly believed. Her tears welled in her eyes. My good child, someone has cast a curse on you. This kind of curse is vicious. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life. I can help you, but you must truly believe me. Hearing there was a way to save myself, I quickly knelt and bowed to her. It wasn't that I was too naive, but the matter of Kat Than Than being able to share my thoughts on the same exam was too bizarre. Now, having eliminated all other possibilities, no matter how illogical, the remaining truth had to be it. Old woman Zhang said, "Your fiancé, Vu Dai Hai, is very likely involved in the casting of this curse. Because this kind of curse not only makes people share thoughts, but also drains the vitality of the opposite sex nearby." Vu Dai Hai was always lingering around me. He couldn't have been unaffected. Judging by his strength just now, he has most likely undergone some ritual to ward off evil. Still half in doubt, I asked old woman Zhang what to do next. She went home and returned with a charm, instructing me to carry it with me for 3 days, even when sleeping. One crucial condition: I absolutely must not meet Kat Than Thang during these 3 days. After 3 days, she would come to my house herself to burn the charm into ash. Only then could the curse be broken. I thanked old woman Zhang, but I knew this matter could not be left alone. Old woman Zhang, I won't hide anything from you. I have already died once. In my past life, Chief Cat's family destroyed me completely. In this life, I cannot let them go. Upon hearing this, old woman Zhang's expression immediately changed. My child, so you returned carrying a great injustice. That's good, then much easier to handle. People who die with heavy grievances and are reborn can use a counter charm from this very amulet to return everything to the opponent. However, the charmed water must be consumed by the opponent to be effective. I calculated silently. Having believed old woman Zhang this far, I would follow through completely without hesitation. I returned home and told my mother everything that had happened. Then I moved down to temporarily live in the underground cellar, waiting for old woman Zhang to arrive in 3 days to perform the ritual. But those 3 days were far from peaceful. On the very first night, Cat Than Than appeared at our door. As soon as she arrived, she shrieked, Gao Tu man, if you don't come out, I'll stay in your house. I don't believe you'll dare not show your face this lifetime. She screamed in the yard, and from the cellar I could clearly hear every word. Curious neighbors gathered, asking what was happening. Cat Than Than brazenly announced, Gao Tu man caused my father to be arrested. I must demand justice. Hearing this, I almost snorted with laughter. Fortunately, old woman Zhang had warned me. If Cat Than Than stayed too long near me, the memories in my head would gradually transfer to her. Therefore, I absolutely had to cut off all contact with her. She probably planned the same thing, intending to stay at my house all night, then find a way to make me solve a few problems in the middle of the night, prolonging the time to share memories at least enough to get through tomorrow's exam. Thankfully, I had already affixed the second charm old woman Zhang gave me to the cellar door. Because of this, even though we were in the same yard, she couldn't connect with my thoughts. When I didn't appear by midnight, Cat Than Than grew impatient. She screamed, cursing me as an ill-behaved daughter who didn't come home at night. Then she dragged Wu Dai Hai's parents from the next house over. They crowded into our yard to watch the spectacle, causing the cellar door to sag from their weight dirt, raining down, choking me. Afraid of being discovered, I held my breath until my face turned red. Wu Dai Hai's mother, who had always seemed understanding, now spoke loudly. This auntie, your daughter, wherever she goes, you should at least say something. A daughter not returning home in the middle of the night is not a virtuous girl. If my family were to marry such a girl, it would be a disgrace to the entire village. My mother had always valued this engagement, her affection for it almost like a trance. But today, my mother let go of everything. If you feel disgraced, then don't marry her. Your family wants to marry my daughter, but I don't even want to marry Xiaomin to the Wu family. What are you saying? If it weren't for my family helping to cure Xiaomin, how could she be as healthy and nimble as she is now? A thud echoed as if something heavy had been thrown, and the entire ground shook. Immediately afterward, my mother's clear voice rang out, This is my dowry. Everything valuable in our house is here. If you want to talk about the kindness of curing her illness back then, take it all. But curing an illness is one thing. I have never seen anyone cure an illness and then demand someone's daughter in return. I absolutely will not marry my daughter to your family. The villagers, who had gathered to watch the commotion, began to chatter incessantly, repeating that principles were principles. Was it right to sell a daughter just for a few doses of medicine? Dai Hai's mother was so humiliated, she had nowhere to hide her face. Her face crimson, she silently pulled her husband and turned to go home, ignoring Cat Than Than's desperate screams. Neither of them looked back. Cat Than Than's scheme had failed. Unable to make me appear, she slinked away the next day. She didn't go to the university exam either. When villagers asked, she claimed to be sick. 3 days later, old woman Zhang came to my house to perform the ritual to burn the charm into ash as promised. I also invited Wu Dai Hai. After not seeing him for a few days, he looked noticeably thinner. He greeted old woman Zhang with a simple nod. When I invited him to sit, he suddenly knelt before me. Xiao Min, my parents didn't mean to cause trouble. After all, we're about to get married. Don't let rumors affect our relationship. And about forcing you to take the exam the other day, I didn't think it through, but I truly was thinking of you. Without a degree, it would be difficult to even get a chance to return to the city later. I smiled. No matter how difficult, it's not as difficult as being falsely accused in my previous life. I helped Dai Hai up, not bothering to revisit the past. I silently burned the charm into ash before him, carefully wrapping the fine powder, then hiding it deep inside the cupboard. Dai Hai curiously asked what it was. I pretended to be mysterious. Old woman Zhang said I was cursed before. Someone could steal thoughts from my head. Now the curse is acting up again. To eradicate it completely is impossible. I can only take this medicine to suppress it. But this medicine absolutely cannot fall into anyone else's hands. Otherwise, my head might truly be taken by someone else. Daihai's fingers trembled. He looked up at me, his eyes flickering violently. I said nothing more to him, merely telling him coldly to go home. In the middle of the night, I heard a sound near the cupboard and immediately knew. Indeed, he had secretly returned to steal the medicine. But what I hadn't expected was that he didn't take the ash to Cat Thon Thon. He drank it himself. Human greed is immeasurable. I had once thought Dai Hai was merely Cat Thon Thon's pawn, but in reality, he too wanted to possess the ability to share thoughts like mine. After drinking the charmed ash, screams of agony immediately erupted from Dai Hai's house. His parents cried and wailed in panic, calling his name. Villagers rushed to see what was happening. People poured out of the Vu family's house, overflowing into my yard. Everyone said, Dai Hai has gone mad. At first, he was unconscious, but his mother cried and called his spirit until he finally woke up. But the first thing he screamed when he opened his eyes was, I am the village chief's daughter. Startling his parents so much, they nearly fainted, thinking their son was possessed. Invoking spirits and seeking shamans proved useless. Dai Hai then went to find a mirror himself. Upon seeing his reflection, his face turned ashen, his mouth agape, utterly bewildered. Then without a word, he rushed straight to Chief Cat's house. Xiaomin, why don't you go to Chief Cat's house and see no matter what he was? Once your fiancé, an old woman from the village, pulled my arm trying to lead me to see the commotion. I didn't go closer, only watched from afar. Vu Dai Hai, like a madman, frantically pounded on Chief Cat's door. Chief Cat, scowling, opened the door, then immediately delivered a kick to Dai Hai's chest. Here to pay your respects? That urgent, huh? In the middle of the night, disturbing people's sleep? Vu Dai Hai clutched his chest, groaning. But as he opened his mouth, he called out, Father-in-law. Chief Cat's fury instantly erupted to his head, and he demanded an immediate explanation from his wife. Just then, Cat Than Than appeared, her shoulders swaying, as if about to fall off her gait, wobbly like a man learning to walk in high heels. Upon seeing Dai Hai's mother hysterically dragging her son, she changed her tone. Let him in. Let's get to the bottom of this. Once the yard gate closed, the villagers, having nothing more to see, dispersed. Dai Hai's parents, however, remained sitting by Chief Cat's gate, guarding it all night. It wasn't until the next morning that Vu Dai Hai emerged from Chief Cat's house. But he was even more deranged now. His body was covered in bloody wounds, and he screamed, If you don't acknowledge me as your child, this family will be dissolved. He rushed to the town to report Chief Cat for abusing his power, taking bribes, and illegally withholding personal files, obstructing personnel transfers within the farm. When officials from higher up came to investigate, the villagers were shocked to discover that not just one, but many female commune members in the village had been harassed by Chief Cat. Before he could be legally processed, someone silently threw a sack over his head and beat him within an inch of his life. He fell unconscious into a pile of cow dung behind the cattle pen, lying delirious all night in the biting winter cold, and froze to death. His wife, horrified, went to find him. Upon seeing her husband's body, she went mad, staggering back to call for help, but slipped on the way, falling from a bridge into the river and drowning. Cat Than Than, hearing that both her parents were dead and the investigation team had sealed their house, and that she was about to face charges, wailed, protesting that she was not part of the Cat family. But no one believed her. Later, late one night, Cat Than Than stabbed Vu Dai Hai to death. Everyone was incredulous. They said it was impossible. How could a weak girl like Cat Than Than kill a tall, strong man like Vu Dai Hai? Only I understood Cat Than Than's insane strength came from the thoughts within her mind, thoughts that originated from Vu Dai Hai. And Dai Hai didn't resist because his mind contained Cat Than Than's memories and feelings. And in those memories, she always believed herself weak and unable to fight anyone. Later, I asked old woman Zhang about this. She only sighed. If Cat Than Thang had drunk that charm, she would have had to return all the fortune and knowledge she had stolen from your mind over the years. But if Vu Dai Hai drank it, the situation would be very serious. They would exchange perceptions, even form a fate bond. If one died, the other could not survive. Indeed, before she could even be sentenced, Cat Than Than died strangely. Vu Dai Hai's parents, receiving the news of their son's tragic death, instantly aged by decades, their spirits broken, lost souls. My mother, witnessing the collapse of those two families, still held me tightly, fearful, saying, As long as you are alive, my child, that is all that matters. I smiled softly. Mother, what are you thinking? I not only want to live, but I also need to prepare for the university exam. The following year, I became the only child in the farm to pass the university exam. The new farm chief was an upright man. He and the villagers beat drums and gongs, seeing me off to university. My personal file was quickly returned to the city. That year, my father was also cleared of all false charges. Our family of 3 was finally reunited in a small house in the city. At Tet, we gathered around a plate of sticky rice cakes, eating and watching the snow fall outside the window. Old woman Zhang sent me a letter carried by a young man from the village to the city. The letter read, "The mud house my mother and I lived in when we first arrived at the farm had problems. It turns out the cat family had long had their eyes on my mother and me. Because we were an intellectual family, they conspired to cast a curse, creating a mind link. It was only midway that Dai Hai's family intervened, causing the contract to be broken. Dai Hai unintentionally gained a wife, while Cat Than Than could only access fragmented thoughts that I was currently having. As for Dai Hai turning his back on me later, it was likely because he saw I no longer had any exploitable value." As I finished the letter, memories of a year ago surged back like a waterfall. A bizarre, absurd, and dark story, like a long, suffocating dream. Fortunately, this time the dream did not consume me. I folded the letter, set it aside, and opened a book to read. Beside me, my beloved family, their warmth surrounding me. In this life, I could finally honorably live as a clean and kind scholar. That alone was the best. Thank you for watching.